You are completely knocked out, drooling on a sleeping bag, and entirely oblivious to the dark world around you. Biologically speaking, you are nothing but a helpless piece of slow meat. Now imagine you are pitched somewhere deep in Yellowstone, trusting your life to a ridiculously thin layer of nylon that separates your snoring body from apex predators. And yet, every single time the sun comes up, you wake up totally fine. Why do they just walk right past you? The explanation is never just one thing. It goes deep. Let's go. Let us start with a biological reality that feels like pure human arrogance, but is actually cold, hard science. You need to understand that humans are not just another mammal on the food chain, but a global superpredator with an utterly unique ecological impact. According to a landmark 2015 study in Science, our ancestors spent the entire Pleistocene epoch hunting with such terrifying efficiency that we essentially engineered an artificial natural selection. We tracked the fastest runners, we exhausted the heaviest giants, we slaughtered the sharpest fangs. The apex predators of the past that viewed humans as just another slow meal were entirely wiped out. The only carnivores that managed to survive and pass on their genes were the ones that developed a deep phobia of two-legged hairless apes. That instinctual dread did not fade away when we moved into cities and started working desk jobs or scrolling on phones. It became permanently burned into their DNA across thousands of generations, creating an inherited survival mechanism that forces wild animals to retreat the moment they detect our presence. Here is exactly what that ancient terror looks like in modern practice. Picture a dense forest in California, where a massive mountain lion has just hunted a deer. It is tearing into its fresh meal, feeling completely untouchable at the top of its local food chain. Researchers from UC Santa Cruz placed hidden cameras and speakers near these feeding sites for a fascinating experiment published in Ecology Letters in 2019. As the wildcat feeds, the speaker plays a remarkably mundane sound. It is not a cracking rifle or a roaring engine, but simply the audio of a human podcast host talking calmly. The mountain lion does not pause to investigate the threat or defend its hard-earned kill. It panics entirely, instantly abandoning the deer carcass and bolting into the thick brush in absolute horror. That specific reaction is the echo of 1,000,000 years of evolutionary logic playing out in real time. The mountain lion is an absolute unit of muscle and claws, capable of snapping a neck in seconds. Yet the mere frequency of casual human vowels triggers an uncontrollable flight response. Our historical status as the ultimate apex predator is so thoroughly established that our simple vocal presence distorts the entire surrounding ecosystem, sending ripples of panic from the largest felines down to the smallest field mice. The beasts lurking outside your camping site are not calculating how easily they could tear through your sleeping bag. Their primal biology is violently screaming at them to stay as far away from the talking apes as physically possible. Because engaging with humans historically meant total extermination. That is natural selection. Here is something else that almost never comes up in these campfire survival conversations. Let us talk about the absolute chemical confusion that is your personal scent. You probably never think about how you smell because you are constantly surrounded by other humans. But to a wild animal, you are a walking ecological anomaly. Prey animals naturally smell like grass, damp dirt, pine needles, and fresh blood. You, on the other hand, smell like an industrial laboratory. You reek of artificially scented body washes, the lingering chemical preservatives from your highly processed drive-through meals, and the complex synthetic polymers baking inside your expensive Patagonia fleece or REI sleeping pad. To a wild predator possessing a highly tuned olfactory system, inhaling your specific scent profile does not trigger a primal hunger response. It triggers profound hesitation. You do not register to them as a familiar, easily digestible piece of organic protein in the woods. You register as a highly toxic, completely alien chemical spill that is probably extremely dangerous to consume. But what actually happens to your biological defenses when you finally drift off to sleep in that tent? You might assume your body completely powers down, leaving you entirely vulnerable to whatever quietly wanders out of the dark tree line. That is entirely incorrect. According to a fascinating 2018 study published in Evolutionary Anthropology, human sleep is actually exceptionally weird compared to almost all other primates. we evolved to experience a significantly shorter and noticeably shallower overall sleep cycle. Evolutionary biologists refer to this built-in subconscious defense mechanism as the sentinel function. Even when you are completely unconscious and deep in REM sleep, your brain never actually unplugs its perimeter alarms. Your neurological radar is constantly, silently sweeping the immediate environment, actively filtering out normal ambient sounds like rushing wind or moving river water, while remaining hypersensitive to the specific, unnatural snap of an approaching twig or a sudden unfamiliar animal musk. The absolute second an anomalous predator signal breaches that invisible sensory perimeter, your brain violently floods your nervous system with adrenaline, snapping you wide awake and physically ready to react before you even consciously understand why. You might firmly believe you are nothing but a helpless piece of resting meat when you close your eyes. But the reality is, your biology is secretly running a highly sophisticated, military-grade surveillance system until morning. Now, let us tackle the biggest myth about wild predators, because popular culture has spent decades getting this completely wrong. We tend to project our own thought processes onto animals, assuming they calculate risk using human logic, like a horror movie villain actively plotting an ambush. They absolutely do not. A predator operates on a strict, unbreakable biological budget of calories and injury prevention. A wild animal does not have access to a veterinary clinic, trauma surgery, or a steady supply of antibiotics. A single broken bone from a struggling victim, a deep laceration from a strange two-legged creature, or even a shattered tooth means a slow, agonizing death by starvation in the dirt. Therefore, their entire existence is governed by extreme risk aversion. When they encounter a sleeping human, they do not perceive a defenseless target ready to be eaten. They see an unpredictable, highly anomalous variable. The biological equation in their brain instantly concludes that the unknown risk of engaging an alien species vastly outweighs the potential caloric reward. They exclusively prefer to hunt what they know they can kill safely. That is the unbreakable rule of the wild. Now, let us be completely honest about something, because ignoring the terrifying historical exceptions would make this analysis entirely incomplete. Sometimes, that invisible biological agreement shatters, and the results are absolute nightmares. In 1898, a pair of massive male lions essentially paralyzed the construction of a railway bridge in Tsavo, Africa. For nearly a year, these two specific predators completely bypassed all their natural prey, actively stalking human campsites in the dead of night to drag workers right out of their beds. They became highly efficient man-eaters, slaughtering dozens of people and halting an entire empire's infrastructure project. You can actually go look at these legendary monsters yourself today. Their preserved skulls and skins are permanently displayed right in the United States at the Field Museum in Chicago. However, those physical museum exhibits hold the exact scientific secret to why they attacked in the first place. A comprehensive 2017 study published in the journal Nature deeply analyzed the dental anatomy of those specific Tsavo skulls and discovered something incredibly revealing. These lions were never healthy apex predators acting on normal hunting instincts. They both suffered from horrific, crippling dental diseases, including a severely abscessed root and completely shattered canine teeth. They physically could no longer grapple with the tough, struggling, thick-skinned prey they evolved to hunt, such as zebras or buffalo. The blinding pain and mechanical failure of their jaws forced them into extreme desperation. They had to switch to a significantly softer, slower, and structurally weaker target just to survive. Humans were simply the path of least resistance. A perfectly healthy predator almost never hunts you. Only the broken ones change the rules. There is one final layer to this entire phenomenon, and it is genuinely the most mind-bending realization of all. When we venture out into the wilderness, we naturally assume we are stepping into their domain as fragile, defenseless guests. We look out into the dense, shadowed tree line and feel an overwhelming sense of physical vulnerability. But the macroecological reality is entirely the opposite. You are not a helpless visitor desperately trying to survive in a hostile environment. You are the apex of the apex, a creature so historically devastating that your mere biological presence actively warps the entire natural food web around you. You do not even have to raise a weapon, set a trap, or consciously assert your dominance to control the forest. The simple act of breathing in your sleep, shedding your synthetic chemical odors, and emitting casual vocal frequencies is enough to send the most lethal carnivores on the continent running for their lives in absolute panic. We have effectively traumatized the natural world. Think back to that ridiculously thin piece of nylon pitched somewhere deep in the North American backcountry. You lay there in the pitch black, shivering at the thought of what might be circling your campsite, separated from the wild by nothing but a fragile zipper. You imagine the sharp fangs, the heavy claws, and the raw muscle lurking just a few feet away from your resting head. But the truth is, the creature standing just outside the glow of your dying campfire is not calculating a way to get inside. It is actively fighting 1,000,000 years of genetic programming, violently screaming at it to flee from the unnatural, radar-scanning super predator sleeping inside. You are entirely safe not because the fabric protects you, but because the forest inherently remembers exactly what your species is capable of. The beast outside is not coming in. It knows better.